Today we are going to be doing the last of our appliques. I'm not going to go over the whole detail of sewing it on and adhering it to your blocks or your background fabric. I'm just going to go over the quick detail of how to press your non-fused applique. So this is just plain simple applique, where we do not use anything fusible. We just use the fabric and we use some form of starch. I've got Mary Ellen's Best Press. I like it. So what we need to do is I just use an old bottle cap and I place just a little bit of the press in there. And I've got my iron warmed already. I've got my scissors handy, and I've got some little clips in there started. You can see I've already started pressing. I'm working on a whole project. I don't have all my clips here done, so I'll finish clipping that. So once again, it's just fairly simple. Start with just the little simple finger pressing, my best friend when it comes to applique. Then we take our iron and we just give it a little press as well. As we do our fold overs. Trying not to burn our fingers, which I've managed. I use a Teflon based iron this time. I sometimes use my little micro iron, but my micro iron right now is really dirty and I need to make the effort to clean that. I haven't done that yet, but with the starch it does build up a little bit of coating. To continue on, we just go and gently press that as best we can, trying really hard not to press on our freezer paper, because this is how we do it. We take a piece of freezer paper and we adhere it to the fabric with our iron. Give yourself a 1/4 inch trim around, so just the normal process. And we want to be careful. I've just folded over my freezer paper, so I'm going to fold that back. And just continue on. These corners are going to be really, really tight. These are one of my challenges. I'm not the greatest at pressing these open, as it's a very fine line between trimming it far enough that you don't fray and close enough that you get a lovely fold over. And these are very, very tight. And I'm probably falling off screen as we go. So this is where my little micro iron, I've gone and I've cleaned that. I used solvent, didn't work very well. I actually took a 400 sandpaper, because this is just solid metal. I don't have the Teflon coating. So this is just solid metal now. So I sanded off all the goop, and you could go in and press. It's not on. As I said, it does tend to goop up with the press. You would probably clean it afterwards, would be a good plan. But I'm going to turn that on and we will give it a try and see how it goes. Guess it would help if I plugged it in. It would help. And we're on. So now to get it, that really nice sharp crease like I've got here at the top, you just lightly dip your finger in, and just at the edges, you're just going to run your finger just along the edge there You don't need to get it soaking wet. You just need to get it wet enough and then press it over. And it does sizzle. Tis being a little stubborn. So I'm just using just the tip of my iron to start the fold over there. And I just continue on. It's being a little stubborn there. I'm going to hold my scissors. So the nice thing about this is when you do make a mistake and you've ironed, you just have to re-wet it and reposition your fabric and how you would like it to go. So it does make for forgiveness of mistakes, which is always a good idea and a good plan. But as you can see, it is incredibly time consuming. And the other nice thing about the fused applique is that when you're folding over a difficult position like this, it just allows for an extra layer of securing your fabric in the position and where you would like it to be. So that's always a good plan. So when I go ahead and I can see how threadbare I am here, and when I'm done pressing, I will give you all a show. I will show it and give you a close-up. I will know to be extra cautious. So this is the nice thing about this one, is you can get really nicely into those tight spaces. I've got a really nice press there. I'm going to come around and show you. So I've got a really nice press, and this is what I mean when I say it is incredibly threadbare. There's very little there, so my suggestion, I'm going to be doing is, like, I've literally just got 2 threads there on the whole, folded over on the whole area there. I will be using a zigzag stitch. So I'm not going to continue to press this out on camera. I think you've got the idea. Maybe I'll just go down here and show you a little more of the process. But as you can see, it is a lot more time consuming. The only nice thing about it is that it goes ahead and it gives you just a really nice flat surface. So if you were going to hand quilt this, you would prefer to hand quilt this compared to the fused, because the fused will just be really hard because you're trying to get your needle through an extra layer, and it's a gooey, sticky layer, so not the greatest of layers. I've gone and I've folded that back. So here we go. Just an example. You're going to cut down there, and this is where you're going to open it up. Just very gently, as best you can. We're a little thick in some areas here for what I'll just trim this down. Give my little quick snips here just to make the fold over a little simpler. Right, we press without the stabilizer or the starching. And I haven't used this iron in a long time, so I'm just going to give it a little bit of a try. And you can tell I'm not pressing the whole width of the fabric. I'm just pressing up there at the end. I don't do the whole fold over until I go to use the starch. Right? Dip and tap. Don't need a lot. Just need enough to secure it. So you do want to hold it down for a few seconds, give it a good press. But like I said, as you can see, it is incredibly time consuming. But every technique has its place and has its person. Well, I encourage you to go ahead and find the technique that you like best for the type of quilting. Don't feel guilty for your choices, because sometimes you're doing a really functional quilt that will be washed like a baby quilt. And I've said this previously, my baby quilts get the fold over fused. Something I'm hand appliquing or I've spent a lot of time embellishing, or I'm going to hand quilt, will get a more precise technique such as this. So there we go. Now I'm going to quickly go on to hand applique. Hand applique is a little trickier. So this is our next block. I've called it Chrysanthemum. It's 3-layered, and I've gone and I've cut out the backing there. But I'll go into more detail of how this is pieced when I do the video for the beginning of May, because that's when this video will come, probably just after Mother's Day. Shut you off, and I'm just going to reposition the camera and myself so that you get a really good view, because this is where we need the good close-ups. I just want to show you what a finished piece looks like. That's just a simple square. I will grab also, this is going to be one of my logs for my cabin. Well, that's what the back looks like. And this is what the front looks like. And here is what the applique, I just went and used a really small zigzag stitch. My only word of caution would be I did not use a back stabilizer, so a stabilizing fabric in the back, a tearaway stabilizer. This here is on the bias, so you can see the little waves in there. My only recommendation would be to do a little bit of a stabilizer. So you can do like a fabric tearaway stabilizer. If you frugal like myself, I always use just a plain sheet of paper. So just giving you options. Do my little knot. I've chosen this time, you can see I'm using a really rather contrasting thread there. I've just done that for the ease of demonstration. This isn't going to be my permanent thread. I'm going to take it off and re-applique it. I just want to give you a really good example of how I go and set this up. Okay, so start it off in the back there. And I'm just going to, now this is how I do it. My needle is coming in at an angle. So I've just undone it. Well, there we go. There's my needle. And to flip it over, I've just caught those back threads, 2 or 3. It's really hard to see. And I come in from the side. I go pull my needle out again and unthread it, of course. Well, I just go back in just where I've started, go over just slightly, like maybe a millimeter over. Try to catch it just at the edge from the back towards the front, from the back at the bottom towards the front on the top. And again. So you can see I take my time, I reposition my needle quite regularly to get it exactly where I want. So I've got my few threads in the back there. Sorry, it's really hard to tape hand applique. So there you go. I've got about 3 or 4 threads. And I just keep going like this. And it's just a continuous little come from the down the back from the right, so you can see when you just catch those 2 or 3 threads from the underneath, the folded over underneath part of your fabric and come out at the side. And that is it is a bit of a trick. So I'm just going to pull this last one right through and under. Right? So there is my applique. And as you can see, even though I'm using that contrasting thread, you can barely see it, but, you know, go to tug it off. Well, it's basted, but go to tug it off here. It is actually secured there quite well because I've caught in 3 or 4, 2 to 3 threads on the underneath part and come out the side. And I've got my good stitches here. So that is how I do my applique. I like going out the side because it hides my stitches quite well, but it's still securing it very well. Well, there's this week's 2 lessons. So, and I'll show you how to do the method of the fold over for your petals there. It's actually really quick and simple and easy. But that's not till May for when we're ready to do this block. Really good idea to go over threads, just in general. So we'll start with the hand applique threads. Sometimes I use just a simple Gutermann, the 50 weight. or the 40 weight. I think it's the 50 weight. It doesn't, sorry, it's so old, the sticker's gone. It's just a simple thread, but it is a simple thread that works well. We've also got silk threads. So this is a silk right here. It does not say the weight. But I'm going to assume, it says there, so this is a 50 weight silk. It's a beautiful thread, but I tend not to, and I just find, and I haven't used my technique of coming out, catching it from the bottom and coming out the side of the applique. So I will eventually, when I get a chance, go through all of the different threads and what your applique will look like. So there is the 50 weight here. I do have a silk thread that's 100. So the higher the number, the finer your thread. I have not tried it with this. What I do use this for is my micro piecing. And the reds, I have gone and I've purchased a whole bunch of reds that I use for what I call thread painting, what I've been taught. I'm not a great expert at that, but I'm going to give it a try. So these would also work for a hand applique. We've got our Aurifil 50 weight. That works for hand applique. You can get the Aurifil in smaller bobbins. They're a little harder to carry because it is a more expensive fabric than, say, your Gutermann. This is a polyester. I would not use a polyester for applique by hand. By hand. Actually, I do really prefer my natural fibers. So Aurifil also does come in the 80 weight. I do not have any examples of that, but that is another one you can use. And these are all 2-plies. So that means it's 2 strings of thread that have gone through and been twisted together to come out with your actual thread. This is the Presentia, which is even a little more expensive than, say, the Aurifil. So this generally at a quilt store is, well, in Canadian dollars, about $13 Canadian. Not that that's expensive. That's actually a pretty good price for, you get what, I think it's 500 meters. Or 1,300 meters. It's not saying all that well. And this is the Presentia. So one like this probably run you about $40, $45. It is a bigger spool. This is one of the few 3-ply threads. So instead of taking 2 threads together and making a 50 weight thread, they've taken 3 and making a 50 weight thread. That's just a little stronger of a thread. You can use it for hand applique. That's actually, I don't think I would recommend this because it is a stronger thread. If you're going to hand, or if you're going to be washing your piece a lot, it actually has the chance to rub away and wear away your fabric, and you know, your stitching might come undone, or your fabric itself might be ripped apart. So you could use it. I would not my favorite kind to hand applique. Like I said, I'll probably stick to the 2-plies, the thinner threads. So that's for hand. Hand, I would also never use rayons. I find rayons find them very frustrating. They're, as you can see, they're a stunning and beautiful thread. They add drama, they add texture. They also break. They fray and they break. And the smaller the needle of your eye, the eye of your needle is, the more they're prone to fraying and breaking. And even just doing a simple running stitch, I use this a lot for simple running stitches. They fray a lot. They're a little, I think they're probably a 40 weight. It doesn't really say, but they are, well, they are good. They do fray. They're better in the machine, so they work very well for a machine applique. Any of these will work well for a machine applique. You could even use your polyester for machine applique. I just don't use it very often because I'm not a big fan of polyester. Your silks, I've never tried it for machine applique, but like I said, I do my micro stippling, which eventually you will see what example of that is. Here's another beautiful rayon. As you can see, I haven't used it yet. It's a 2-ply, I believe. So it does have a bit of a sheen to it. You can see I've used this one here. This is a variegated thread. There's just so many choices that you could use. And you just need to choose the one that works best for you and roll with it. I do believe I've also said, I do use a lot of the rayons for applique just because they do add a lot of drama, as you can see. They're just a beautiful type of thread. But anyway, that is a very quick introduction onto threads. And if when in doubt, give it a try. Practice. Take a little piece of scrap and just applique it to something using your machine, using your hand, and you'll just find that you do have your favorites. So just go ahead and play and have fun and be creative. I'm just looking if there's any other different threads. This is a 3-ply gold thread. Once again, it's a beautiful thread. I think this is actually from my mom's collection, so it's rather old. But as you can see, that is really hard to thread. I will use this for like embroidery. I do believe in your sewing machine, it does have a tendency to tear at your needle. Your needle does tend to fray it as well. So depending on what your purpose is and how frustrated you want to be, choose your threads. There, like I said, there's so many threads out there, so many gorgeous color choices and texture choices. Just play, have fun, be creative, and just make the process as enjoyable as you possibly can.